Hello, everyone. Thank you for clicking on this video that's going to tell you all about a new workshop that I have coming up, and that workshop is called Improv Ed. So if you will bear with me for just a minute, I'm going to pull that slideshow up and we'll get started. Improv Ed is a virtual live workshop, and that means that it is held live on Zoom, but there are recordings for every single session, and it is done virtually. So that means that you'll be in the comfort of your own home. The name of the workshop is Improv Ed, and it will be happening on Thursdays in 2026. We always meet at the same time, and that is 6 to 9 p.m. East Coast time. So no matter if it's daylight savings or not, we're always meeting at 6 o'clock East Coast time. And then those are the dates. We meet twice a month, usually close to the beginning of the month and close to the end of the month, but it varies a little bit. But there are two sessions every month. And I think I should tell you a little bit about who I am in case you don't know. You ended up randomly watching this video. My name is Maria Schell, and I am an improvisational quilt maker. I am a teacher, a writer, a lecturer, and a maker. And these are all my social media and website information. You can visit me on my website. Uh, I do a pretty good job of posting things on Instagram and then YouTube, which is where this video will live. There's some good videos there, especially from my long format class called Stitching Towards Discovery. The presentations for the end of that class are called the Big Ta-Da, and there are several of those that exist on my YouTube page. And then, of course, Pinterest. These are some images from a recent event that I was really fortunate, honored, excited to be a part of, and that is Quilt Folk Magazine recently visited Alaska, where I live, and I was one of the featured artists for that particular edition of the journal, and that is edition number 36. I thought I would share these images. They give you a glimpse of what my studio looks like and what my front yard looks like, but it's also an opportunity to tell you that I'm a lifelong sewer, and I've been making quilts for 25 years. I started out as a traditional quilt maker, but I make quilts for the wall, and I do have what some might call a modern aesthetic. So I consider myself both a traditional art modern quilter, and uh, it's a huge part of my life. A few other things that you might want to know about me is I wrote a book called Improv Patchwork. That book, which came out in 2017, I think it's still relevant. It's still in circulation, and it really is a how to make improvisational units and then put them into compositions. Now, the units in the book are all linear, and I'm hoping someday to write a book that has curved units. You can still order the book on Amazon or through CNT, they're my publishers. Another thing that I'd like to share with you is that I'm a student of Nancy Crow's. I started studying with Nancy in 2009. And then that was very sporadic because my children were younger and I was traveling to teach. And during COVID, I made a commitment to reboot my studies with her. And so since 2021, I've been studying with her for approximately 4 weeks every year. She offers what is considered a low residency master's program where you study with her in person and then you go back to your home studio and do the work and then you show up again. It is a very fulfilling, educational, in some ways essential experience for me. Another thing that maybe you should know about me, besides the fact that I'm a teacher, writer, and lecturer, is that I do exhibit my work in art galleries, exhibitions, show spaces, and that the photo on the right is a photo of me at the Shelburne Museum and with my exhibition called Off the Grid. A few quilts of mine that I wanted to share with you while I talk a little bit about the type of Piecer I am. So I am a piecer. I'm not an applique person. I'm also an improvisational piecer, which means that I primarily do not use rulers. My work is often unit based, meaning I will make a unit. I'll make a bunch of units and then I will assemble them into a larger composition. Much of my earlier work is on a grid format, but more recently I have been exploring more curvilinear shapes and working off the grid. So the grid work, I think, is more closely related to traditional quilt making, and then off the grid moves into more improvisational quilt making. I also consider community quilts as part of my practice, and this is a community quilt that I made for the city of Memphis. And I have not made a community quilt recently, but a lot of the techniques and ideas that I explore in community quilts are also, they're related to my regular practice as well. Okay, so virtual classroom. And this is a good example, a screen grab of one of my classes. This is from Improv for Everyone, which I do twice a year. It's a low budget class that is 4 hours of instruction. You get handouts, you get the video, you get tutorials, you get sew time, you get community, all those things for a very low price. And I do that in January and July. So if you're thinking about this class, which is called Improv Ed, it's a longer format and it is more expensive. You might want to invest in the January Improv for Everyone workshop, which happens the first Saturday in January 2026, which is a very inexpensive way to see a little bit more about my teaching style. There's a different theme for every class, and the theme for the one that's coming up this January is fat curves and skinny lines. And you can see in this photo that the theme for the workshop had to do with pointy shapes, which are a favorite of mine. So this class, Improv Ed, is going to happen virtually. That's the thing that I want to take away, or that's the idea I want to share that's connected to this slide. Another thing that I really need to bring up right here at the beginning is that Elizabeth Berger is my assistant. She is responsible for enrollment. She also does some particular things in relationship to each class. First of all, she's the moderator. She answers a lot of the questions. When I do demos and tutorials, she runs all the cameras. She is in charge of creating your peer posses, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. What else does she do? She does enrollment, she does a Facebook page, she does a peer posse, she moderates the workshop, she does a whole assortment of things. And that allows me, all the things she does, allow me to focus on teaching, which makes us a very good team. Okay, so what is Improv Ed? Improv Ed, this is the little blurb that I wrote, which really describes it, I think. So, are you improv curious? Do you love to make improv units, but can't seem to sort out how to use them to create a quilt composition? Would you like to have a better grounding in basic design elements, line, shape, figure ground, pattern, scale, and proportion, and of course, color? Then this is the workshop for you. We will dive deep into different design elements from an improv quilt making approach. This workshop also features guest speakers, demonstrations, feedback and consultations, prompts, lectures, community conversations, peer posses, a private Facebook group, and more. The basic details here are that it is a virtual workshop. It will be happening on Thursdays from 6 to 9 p.m. East Coast time, and we meet twice a month, and those are all the dates that we meet in 2026. Each session is held live on Zoom and will be recorded. About 24 hours after the live session, I will send out a recording along with handouts, link pack, the assignment, and any other assorted information that I think is relevant for that month's topic. Few more details. The class will be relatively small, under 36 students. Usually these classes are about 24 students, but I will take up to 36. The workshop is for students who are ready to dive into their improv quilt making skills. The goal is to learn how to be better stitchers, composers, and makers, no matter where you start at. So this class is crafted, designed for people who are at the earlier stages of their improvisational quilt making journey, but it's not exclusively for those people. But the idea is that almost anyone that has a desire to grow and get better, that this class is for you. Prior to the start of the workshop, I will have an individual consult on Zoom with each of the students who have signed up. And during those consults, which will last 15, 20 minutes, we're going to talk about what your goals are, what your aspirations, dreams, and what you want to get out of the class. Plus, it's an opportunity for you to ask me technical questions if you have any. So each month has a design element topic, and these are the topics I've decided upon, but I'm not sure the exact order. So we'll be talking about line, shape, color, format, which you could also call structure or skeleton, pattern, and scale. Here's the formula. So we meet twice a month. And the first session, it's always going to start with a lecture from me about the topic. So for example, if it's line, we're going to talk all about line. We're going to look at artwork that uses line, quilts that use line, artists that use line, what it is, how you do it, and how you put it into a composition that is dynamic and interesting. And that lecture is going to lead to your assignment for the month. And then after that, I'm going to do a demonstration. And the demonstration is also going to be connected to the lecture and to the assignment. So for example, with line, I will talk about my methods for improvisationally piecing line. I'll probably share with you an assortment of different types of line that I make, and then move into how you will use that line in a composition. And then the last component of every session, doesn't matter if it's the first session of the month or the second session of the month, is that we spend about an hour on feedback and consultation, which is an opportunity for you to share your work and for you and I to talk about it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then the second session of every month, we'll have a guest speaker who will share their ideas about the topic. So if the topic is line, then we're going to have a guest speaker that will talk about how they use line and what their feelings are about line and how it works in their compositions and what it means to them as a design element. After that, we'll have a study group discussion, which is an opportunity for us to just chat together. I will hopefully have reading materials related to each of these topics that you folks can read and think about, and we'll talk about during the study group. And then, as always, we'll have feedback and consultation. All right. During each live class period, there are plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions. I always start each session with what I call questions, comments, and concerns. And this is just a time for you to ask any question that you might have. Maybe it's about the assignment or about the schedule or about a Zoom recording, daylight savings times, whatever. So logistics, and then we'll do that periodically through each class. We'll start with that. And then after the lecture, we'll have another opportunity for questions, comments, concerns. And then again, when we do feedback and consultations. Now, there are two different types of questions and comments and concerns. The just general conversation where you have questions is one thing, and we'll do that periodically throughout the class. And then the other opportunity or time to ask questions is during feedback and consultation. And at that point, it's really about a particular piece of work, what you are working on. So there are two different types, and we do them. Questions, comments, and concerns sort of happen all throughout the class. Feedback and consultation in relationship to a particular work that you are working on composing, we do that during the last hour of each session. So, okay, what can you expect? An active and dynamic private online community with a place to share your work. In the past, we have had a private Facebook group, but we may be changing that. You can expect a small group. This is optional, but I think 9 out of 10 of people that sign up for it love it. That is the opportunity to have a small group within our larger group, and we call that our peer posses. Informative and comprehensive lectures about the monthly topic. Fun educational design exercises based on the month's subject matter. Guest artists who share their ideas about the month's subject. Informative conversations about art, design, and quilts during our study group sessions. Feedback and consultation sessions where you receive individualized coaching on how to make your quilt the best quilt it can be. And then finally, deep dive demos on relevant construction and design issues. And of course, there will be more, but these are the main points of what you can expect in the class. And then I thought I'd spend a few minutes, did I just go the wrong way? A few minutes talking about each one of those items that I just mentioned. So any and all of my students are welcome to join the Maria Shell Workshop group on Facebook. We have 2,200 members, which is kind of crazy. This is a large private group where students share their work. Typically, it's work from the workshops that they have taken with me, but it can also be work that they have made using techniques they learned in workshops with me. In addition to that large group, Elizabeth will create a small private Facebook group or another type of online community. We are exploring other options. And there it will just be the members of your class. So that'll probably be 24 to 36 students. You will have opportunity to ask each other questions, provide support to each other, share your work, and all kinds of other good stuff. In addition to the online virtual communities, you will have an opportunity to join a peer posse. And the way the peer posses work is they are essentially a type of accountability partner, although the type of accountability partner that you have kind of depends on what you want. So Elizabeth creates a questionnaire that asks you questions that help her figure out what type of peer posse would you like to be in? Would you like to be in one where you become friends and you talk to each other all the time? Or do you want to be in a peer posse that's more just about someone holding you accountable and that maybe you report back to once a week to make sure that you're staying on track with your learning goals for the class? And she will ask those questions of you, and then she will use the questionnaire in order to pair you with like-minded individuals. So the groups are usually 3 people, but sometimes they will have 4. And I will say that the peer posses, a lot of people have developed deep friendships, and really because you're being paired with people that have similar learning styles and the similar interest of improvisational quilting. And it can be a really deep and meaningful experience, and I highly recommend you try it. Okay, so the monthly lecture, what's that about? It's me giving you a lecture about the topic for the month. And I'm going to do a slideshow. So there'll be lots of images and lots of ideas. And then it will segue into an exercise. You could also call it a prompt, but it's an assignment. And it's basically the assignment is to make a quilt based on the topic for the month. So if the topic is line, you will get an assignment on a exercise that will explore line, especially improvisational line. And then we'll also have a discussion afterwards. So if there's any questions about the lecture for clarity or for any reason, we'll also have time to talk about that. These are the topics we're going to be covering in those lectures: line, shape, color, format, pattern, and scale. This is a slide that I swiped from the internet. It's from the art educational website. And these, you can see over here on the left, elements of art, which is mostly what we're going to be dealing with. But when we start to combine these elements, you get into principles of design. But in the beginning, we're going to start with these elements of art, and we're going to study them. We're going to explore them. We're going to look at them in practice. And then we're going to take all that information and apply it to our own work. Super exciting. All right, the design exercise. As I mentioned before, the design exercise is related to the design topic for the month. And what I thought might be kind of fun for you is that I have another class, which is sort of the advanced version of this class that deals more with combining design elements into design principles. And the focus of the class, which is called Promptopia, and it happens in the fall, is that you are given an assignment, and that assignment usually combines a series of design elements into one composition. And this particular exercise from Promptopia, but I thought it would be a great way for you to get a visual on the type of exercises we'll be doing. In Promptopia, in the exercise called Rock and a Hard Place, students were exploring three basic things: the structure of rock and a hard place, using patterning in their quilts, and using monochromatic, or what I call a push monochromatic palette, which we will talk about at a later date, uh, in the composition. So it was really three things: structure, patterning, and color. And these are the incredible quilts that came out of the exercise. So the structure is essentially a rock and a hard place. And you can see here that Patty Vallis used three different palettes that are all variations of what I call a pushed monochromatic palette. Jackie Tu, Laura Sheets, and the actual exercise in my mind was super simple, right? You've got one structure, and then you've got to put patterning in those structures, and you've got to use these sort of limited color palettes. But the results are anything but simple, really extraordinary. I love how these students took those three components of color, pattern, and structure and created these dynamic and incredibly visually compelling quilts. And this is the sort of exercise that you can expect in this class. Now, in Improv Ed, we probably won't be juggling a bunch of different design elements all at once. We're going to be focusing in on one design element at a time to allow us to go deep and really explore that particular topic. But really, really cool how these students did this. And you can expect to do similar work. There's something about this format of meeting together for 6 months and exploring a very specific topic in a structured way that really empowers students to grow and learn and produce amazing work. Yes. So the next component of the workshop is moving into the second session of every month is that I have a guest speaker. And that guest speaker will be invited to talk about the topic that we are interested in for the month. So if it is shape, the speaker will most likely be known for their use of shape, although they may also be known for color and line and composition and all kinds of things. But anyway, I'm going to ask them to sort of talk about how they think about shape in their work. And then once they speak, the lecture will probably be, 20, 30 minutes long. And then I'll have a conversation with the artist. And then all of you will have an opportunity to ask questions too. The guest artists are people that are known in the quilt making field, although I may branch out beyond that and talk to some artists in other fields, painting, illustration, who knows? They usually have a strong Instagram presence, and I know them and know that they will deliver and that you will be excited by the information that they share. And after we have the guest speaker every month, then we'll have about an hour to talk about anything we want to talk about, really. I will create some prompts, usually based on the topic for the month, but we can also talk about what we learned from the speaker or what we're doing in our own compositions or what is going on in the quilt world at the time. All of those things are relevant and fun topics to explore. Now, at the end of each session, so every month there will be 2 full hours for students to share their work. And I call this feedback and consultation because it's more about your work in progress than it is about critiquing finished work. And the concept here is that and this is what I prefer, but we'll talk about, you have other options, but typically you get the assignment, you work on your quilt, and then the day or so before class happens, the second session of the month, you send me an image of what's on your design wall. You also think about what it is that you want to talk about. Are you struggling with something in particular? Is your color working? Is your structure working? Are your shapes good? And then you send me this beautiful, nicely formatted, well lit image of your work on your design wall. And then I format it into a slideshow, much like the slideshow we're looking at right now. And I also want to just put it out there that put your name either in the body of the email, in the subject line, or on your JPEGs somewhere so that I know whose image belongs to who, and then I put them into a slideshow. If you don't want to do the slideshow format, say you've run out of time and you couldn't get me an image in time for class. You also can share work on your design wall behind you, or if you know how to share your screen from a slideshow that you have on your computer, you may do that as well. So you have three different options. And when we do the feedback and consultations, it is not a free for all. It is feedback, not free for all. And that means that the whole class gets to listen while you and I talk about your work. And the benefit of that is that it isn't your turn to get feedback, you still get to hear all the other conversations that I have with each and every student. But when it's time for you and I to talk about your work, we're not having this big sort of discussion with a bunch of people talking about your work. It's just you and I. And we're just trying to get to the bottom of what you want to do with your work and then me helping you achieve that with your work. Most students find the feedback and consultation very beneficial. Now, deep dive demos. So after I do the lecture and I present your assignment, I'm going to create some sort of tutorial. Chances are it'll be a live tutorial, but it may also be a slide tutorial, or it may be a combination of both of them that's relevant to your particular subject matter. So if we're talking about line, then I'm going to do a tutorial that is related to line. And if it's shape, I'm going to do a tutorial that's related to shape. So you can expect to get technical information, information, how to piece improvisationally, as well as design and composition, more esoteric conversations. We'll talk about those too, but it's also, so this class encompasses it all. Like we're going to be talking about how to make a quilt composition, but we're not just going to be doing it on a surface level or a high level. We're going to also be talking about it on a micro level, like how do you piece those units? What are some technical skills that can improve your improvisational piecing? So it's all encompassing. And this really is, I think, the last slide, which is basically and more. I have this I have this idea of that this is how the workshop's going to go. But in all honesty, when we all get together and I get to know your personalities and what people want out of the class, I shape it and I change it. So we may have some things that happen during the course of the 6 months together that weren't on the original syllabus, but because of the demand or need, they also happen. So you can expect the class to be dynamic and responsive to your own personal needs as a group, right? Okay, I just want to say thank you for taking a little bit of time to watch this video and learn more about the class Improv Ed. If you have questions, you can certainly email me at mariashellimprov@gmail.com, or you can put your questions in the chat below and I will try and answer them. I appreciate all of you and I hope to see you in class. Bye-bye.